Let's roast about it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. This is A2D Wednesday nights, and this is the roast of the Sixers. Let's go.
Oh my God! I'm embarrassed! He's flying!
Welcome in. It's almost time.
Welcome in, everybody. This is A2D Wednesday nights, only on A2D Radio. Every Wednesday, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Trips. And listen, their Eagle schedule's been out. You can go book. You can book for everything, right? And then you can reserve stuff when you're talking about the Phillies. So you can reserve spring training. You can reserve things down the road for next year. And you still have some trips this year you can still attend. So go check out my good friends over at phillysportstrips.com and tell them the boys from A2D Radio sent you and book your getaway today. As always, Frank Vespi, Ralph Del Vecchio, Ryan Brodo. I'm Tom Arnone. No Greg, no Chrome, no Noah tonight. But here we are, and we have a lot of Sixers to talk about. Biggest mistakes of the Joel Embiid era. We'll go over that later on the show. The common theme of this show is the roast of the Sixers. Really should be the roast of Daryl Morey, but roast as the Sixers as a whole and what's going on this offseason with the Sixers and all the drama, right? From parties, from whiteout parties to social media. It looks like kisses are going on to wait, nobody likes each other. Right. So a lot of things going on that we got to get into with the Philadelphia 76ers and all tie into our poll question that's brought to you by FanUp. And FanUp is the best way to enjoy fantasy sports. Daily NFL contests, NBA contests, MLB contests. When all those seasons are in their prime, you can go and have fun with all of them. You can download FanUp right on the Apple Store. And if you use promo code A2D, you get $50 right at sign up. So that's a nice little win too to add on. So go check out FanUp and download them right on the Apple Store. Our poll question for tonight: the Joel Embiid era has been an absolute failure for the Sixers so far. Do you agree or disagree? And let us know. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, that's where we're live. And everywhere you get your podcasts, we're there as well. Hit the like, subscribe, follow. Most importantly, join the conversation. I disagree. And you can say, well, how do you disagree, Tom? Like, first off, people that are going to agree are going to give me a bunch of assumes. A bunch of, well, if this, or if you drafted this person, or if you whatever the case may be, right? Or if you signed this guy, or you made this trade, or everything in between. That's talking about the Sixers, right? That's talking about the Sixers. If we're going to talk about the Joel Embiid era, then we're going to be talking about Joel Embiid, right? And if Joel Embiid had second-round failures, for sure. Has Joel Embiid been injured? For sure. But if you don't draft Joel Embiid and Joel Embiid's not on your basketball team, how good do you think this team really is? How good do you think it is without Joel Embiid? I don't know. Anybody out there that tells me they know doesn't know. That's the point. It's a lot of hypotheticals on what if, okay? But everything that's been going on, like throughout his tenure here, like listen, it's all follow the leader per se, okay? I get that. But this guy's been sensational when he's been on the court. And yes, has he had playoff upsets and failures and different things like that? Yeah, he has. But how much has really been put around Joel Embiid? Consistently. Consistent growth from within around Joel Embiid like other organizations do. Right, so if you look at the deals that have been made, and you look at the draft picks that have been made, and you look at everything in between, it hasn't been ideal for him. Has not been ideal. He played with a guy who didn't shoot for a portion of his career. Right, so yeah, you could say everything's a failure to everybody out there when you don't win a goddamn championship. Sure, but an absolute failure. That's absolute. That's factual. Absolute. To put absolute in front of this poll tells me that, like, yes, it's been a failure. You didn't win a championship. Okay? right? That's a failure when you have a generational player. But to say absolute, nah, I disagree. Because I don't know what life is without Joel Embiid. I do know, actually. I watched it. I was winless for freaking Wiggins. And Joel Embiid has a lot of warts. A lot of warts, for sure, in the playoffs. Nobody's going to run from that. But that's like saying his career's a failure right now. I'm not ready to go down that road yet. Right? I don't know. I mean, right, like numbers-wise, it isn't. Playoff-wise, yeah. I mean, yes, everybody who wins a championship's a failure. I mean, Joel Embiid retired. He's probably a Hall of Famer. Right? So to say like his error is a failure, there's been failures that have happened within it, and there's been second round exits. But I'm not ready to say it's been an absolute failure. You know, to win 50 games a year and to get into the dance and to be a top 3 seed yearly, you know you're going in probably being one. That gives hope. And you never know when you get over that hump. Maybe you never do. But I'm not ready to say this has been an absolute failure.
I'm really surprised you disagree. I'm really surprised. And I understand part of what you're saying, right? Because like in the big key is so far, right? Like, is it over? No, obviously not. Is this anybody who agrees saying, oh, we should absolutely get rid of him? No. I mean, if we want to go to extreme, sure. But it's not just that they haven't won a championship. It's that they haven't really been close. They've been 3 rounds off of it, right? Like if we would have, let's say the Toronto Raptors here, right? The Kawhi bounce. Say we would have gotten to the finals and we would have lost. Okay, you're getting there. Say the year where they got bounced in 7 to the Hawks. Oh, you get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Okay, at least you're showing progression. And also in there, you have a first-round sweep to Boston in the bubble. I get like, that was like, what was that season anyway? It's really weird. But when you just encapsulate, I think what we would call the last, 5, 6, 7 years, which was the Embiid era. Yeah, I do think it has been an absolute failure. I do. Because the whole purpose, and this isn't like a process, like was the process a failure? Because that just gets crazy, that whole conversation. But wasn't the whole point in trying to go out and get a generational star like Embiid and hopefully tack on and get more guys like him through the draft and eventually become a destination to escape what they were prior to that, which was just being stuck, getting eliminated in the first and second rounds? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, listen, if you make a move and all those things, or if things go differently, like, sure, right? Like, but like you said, like we can't encapsulate that into, oh, if you would have made this move, you would have won a championship. Because at the end of the day, whether it was Harden's fault or Tobias Harris's fault or anybody or Ben Simmons' fault, the theme has been, well, Embiid hasn't been healthy, right? Like that's been the theme of the playoffs, right? Oh, only if he would have been healthy. But to me, in a year where we just talked about progression, right? Like it'd be one thing if every year we go into, oh, it's championship or bust. But it hasn't been that. It's like, oh my God, beat the Celtics. Oh my God, close out a game 6 when you're up 3-2 at home with 5 minutes to go.
It's been championship or bust. We can't sit here and say that this hasn't been championship or bust. When you're a top 3 seed and you have arguably a top 3 to 5 player yearly, it's championship or bust. That's any top seed in any conference. That's what that is. So like to say like, oh, it's the end of the world because you didn't win. No, okay, yeah, progression I get, but like let's not act like every year when this season's going to start off and here's another one coming, that there's not the hope that this can be the year that they break through. This can be the year because it's every year. So to me, that's not an absolute failure then. An absolute failure is, it's done. You have to know that it's done. Because if we're saying it's all been a failure, then I don't think that's like totally fair, right? Like because we didn't give any consistency to this. There's been no consistency outside of holding on the bench too long. There's been no consistency outside of just Joel. Think about it. Think about how many different teammates he's had to play with.
Wouldn't you say that's a failure, though? That we didn't provide consistency to it?
It's a failure as an organization. It's not like, but we're saying like when we're talking about, there's a lot of different factors in this, right? Like we should say like in the era of what? Like we're putting the whole Joel era in and saying it's an absolute failure. That's where I'm saying I disagree because you're then you got to break it into pieces here, right? So like the first 3 years when he's on the court, that was a failure. No, right? Like no, we can all agree on that. Okay,
yeah.
So then you got to break
those days. I missed.
Yeah,
those days.
so that's my point. That's my argument here. Like everybody's just jumping, like everybody in the chat's like, it's absolutely a failure. Like no, because it wasn't. Because when we got bounced by Toronto, it wasn't a failure yet. It wasn't a failure yet.
No, that was as close as we probably have ever been to a championship.
So then you go past that, right? And then you start saying, okay, failure, right? But there's not a lot of time. Then you got to talk about, okay, well then we had to switch up teams. We had to switch up the different ways we're going to try to go about this. So like, no, guys, it had. You guys can say a huge disappointment, but to say a huge failure and an absolute failure, because it's not like the last 3 years have been big time failures, right? Or the last two, I should say. The last 2 years, I agree, absolute failure. But prior to that stuff, we weren't thinking failure.
Can we go three? Can we go three though? Because 3 years ago was the Hawks. No, the Hawks series though, Tom. We can't say that wasn't a failure.
No, that wasn't. Was that three? That was three. Okay, because we traded for Harden.
No. That was the.
No. I know what it was. I'm saying then we traded for Harden the next year, and then that was that year, and then this was their first full year together. I mean, I guess, but then you could call this year not an absolute failure. You got beat by a better team. Up
3-2 at home.
You got beat by a better team.
I know.
You were 9.5 point. Hold on, but we were 9.5 point favor or dogs. Like we were getting 9.5 points in those games. Vegas was telling everything we need to know. Sadly, I didn't buy into it, but Vegas was sure as hell bought into that's just a better team somehow. Now, that's a failure. I don't like the way you lost that. You can't, right? So it's a failure, and obviously we're moving on from pieces from that because it was. All right, but the year before, I don't know if that year's a failure.
I would actually – that's the one thing where I'd be like, I understand because broken face and Harden was here for like 20 minutes. Like the middle year, I will like – I'll actually argue maybe not a failure, right? Like disappointing, right? Because it's like, oh my God. But if you look at that entire season, which was like Simmons holdout, you don't have a point guard, Embiid's playing point center, Maxi's taking the big jump, then you're just improvising it for the rest of the season, and so you have broken face, and then it is what it is. And I believe that was against the 1-seed Miami Heat that you played in the second round. That's not failure. That's just eye roll. Right. So
who said real quick? The Philly Sports Bank. Who the hell said that wasn't a failure though? I didn't say it wasn't a failure. I'm saying you can't. I'm saying you lost to a better team though. That's all I'm making. The other argument that Vegas told us that's essentially not a failure. That's just facts of it. That doesn't mean it's okay. That doesn't mean that I wasn't on these airways smoking this basketball team. So like I don't you guys are all just emotional with the whole thing. I'm trying to break it all out a little bit. Let's be a little educated when we're gonna have this conversation and not just be emotional fans like we always are all the time. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to be fair to this, right? Is it disappointment? Absolutely. Is it now or never? Yeah, well, you could even say you're a year past that, right? We could say that. But Joel's 30. So until when his era's over, then we can use the word absolute. That's my point. Like if when his career's done here and he doesn't get to where we want him to get to, then we can throw the absolute failure in. All I'm doing is using that absolute word and I'm throwing an asterisk next to it. That's what I'm doing here because it's guys. I come on here and agree so easily. So what's the point of that?
Can I ask you this?
Because I know what the two guys are going to do. They're going to agree because it's easy to agree.
Can I ask you this, Tom?
I love the assumption, by the way, because I actually disagreed to the poll. So, well done. Great job today. But I also disagreed to the poll. But to determine that it's an absolute failure is when he is not in a Sixers uniform anymore. You know, there's a ton of...
Well, real quick, before as you got snappy, I'm glad you actually talked for 5 seconds. So please continue to enlighten us. You want to do that? I'll do it right back.
And I lost my train of thought there. So
not a surprise. So,
but I mean, you take a look at the miscues by this organization when it comes to drafting talent around Joel. You know, we trade away. You know, I still don't forgive the Sixers about trading away Mikal Bridges. You take a look at, you know, Brett Brown, Doc Rivers' inability to, you know, make the right adjustments. You also take a look at the free agent pieces that, you know, Daryl, Elton, even Bryan freaking Colangelo put around Joel Embiid. So, say it's a failure? No, until he's gone, then it becomes a failure. But right now, I slightly disagree to the poll. It's been frustrating, absolutely.
Yep, and that's where I'm at. Like a slight, you know, it's like it's hard to stand on that hill. It's hard to stand on the disagree hill, right? Like it's not an easy island to be on. Stuff over here. But it's like fair is not even the right word. It's just like unfinished right now. Could be finished any minute, but right now it's just like we don't know the end.
Depends on how many more Embiid interviews he wants to do before October 2nd.
I mean, granted, it says so far, but I just like again, right? I just don't like the word absolute.
Oh no,
like,
that's why that's why I added that, because if I didn't put that in there, I think it's a completely different answer.
Yes, and it's like it's a failure.
The three most important words in this poll question are absolute so far. If I remove that, it's a completely different answer.
Yep.
Ralphie?
I disagree to the poll as well. I think it's not a failure until he's out of the Sixers uniform as well. For me, I mean, shit, dude. This year, miracle happens and you guys win a championship. Then, and everybody changes their stance on the poll question. But for the poll, for me, I mean, it's disagree. I mean, this dude has been consistent. Like Tommy said, this dude has been consistent ever since he stepped on the court. He's been the guy that's been giving you 30 and 15 every single night, it seems like. And then, you run into the Hawks series and that shit happens. I mean, think about we could play the what if game. I mean, what if Ben just lays up the ball, you probably go on and win that game and you move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then, now you're in the third round for the first time ever with those two, outside the quadruple bounce from Kawhi that happened in Toronto. And then we kind of have a different conversation about it. I don't think it's all on Joel, to be completely honest, because like you guys said, he's the most consistent player so far for the Sixers throughout the era of what's happening now. He's been the most consistent. And he's just been through so much shit, right? I mean, he's been through like multiple rosters where people, superstars have come in through midseason. Then we have to come through midseason, create chemistry, and then the summer comes and that superstar leaves, right? And then the James Harden thing happens midseason. You got to get chemistry. And then you have the whole season with James Harden, and then this thing happens with, in the summer again. So it's like it just keeps on going around and around and around and around for Joel Embiid, to where he doesn't have that consistency of – he's a consistent player. It's just that he doesn't have a consistent roster around him that, at least a group of, or, 2 to 3 guys can stay around for a good majority of the time and build something up. And it's like, feels like every season that, new player comes in and got to get new chemistry. And then it's the same old thing. Well, maybe if you just kept a core guys together for 3 to 4 years and built something out, maybe you guys would have won a championship by now. But for the poll question, I disagree. And I don't think right now it's been a failure. Until his Sixers career is done, then we can come and revisit this. But like I said, I mean, at this point, who knows, man? Like maybe this year you guys win the championship, or not this season, but next season something happens, you win another championship. But I think Joel stays a Sixer for his whole entire career. I don't think he goes anywhere else. So you guys probably have about 3 to 4 more years of Joel Embiid, or whenever he decides to hang it up. To be completely honest, I think he ends as a Sixer. I don't think he goes anywhere else.
Can I ask you, when you look at it on this side, okay? Because we, in the first couple minutes we talked about, okay, what each season could be looking like. Was this a failure? When's the last year or season that you look at a Sixers team and you said, okay, that season was a success? How far back do we need to go?
It depends how you look at it. I mean,
If you could go back to
depends
Ben
how
and
you're
Joel's
looking at it.
first year actually together playing
no,
and making the playoffs,
that's
you could
crazy.
you
That's
could go that
crazy.
far.
I mean,
think that's too far.
The only season I could really think is the season with Jimmy Butler, to be honest.
And that can't be called successful either, right? Because the way we lost.
It's
So,
the way
like-
we lost and how we lost.
And you could say the same thing about this year, even though you're losing to the better teams. You know, some of it has to do with some luck too. The only one that was hand given to us, or was a gimme, was Atlanta. That's the one that you can't lose. The rest of them, like, I don't say you should lose a game when you're up 3-2 either, but teams do it. And usually, guess what happens? It's the teams that are better than you to begin with, right? They're better than you. And for somebody to say, do I think Milwaukee or Miami is going to be better than Milwaukee, Miami, and, you know, who else are going to be better in Boston? Like, I don't know. Like, we don't know. We don't have those answers for next year yet. Let's finish off what this, you know, this off season. But, you know, I don't know. I don't think there's like any. I just think it depends how you look at it. Like, you could go back, you know, what, 4 years? 5 years? I don't know.
Well, let's start at the year. It's right after we win the Super Bowl. Embiid gets broken face part 1 after landing on Markelle. Simmons, arguably the best version of Ben Simmons ever. They run like 16 straight going into the playoffs. They beat Miami. Simmons dominates. Embiid comes back with the mask. And then we're feeling really good because the Celtics are I think that was the Celtics team without Kyrie. Kyrie was hurt. And we're like, oh, we're gonna beat the Celtics, and then we're gonna face LeBron, and then LeBron's gonna come to Philly. That was that offseason where it was like gonna be the summer of LeBron. And we end up losing. We end up losing to the Celtics, I believe, in 5 or 6, right? That was the confetti game in like game 2 or something crazy. That is like a weird one, right? Because that's like, I don't even know how you can judge that season, right? Because it's like the first time we're even there. So it's like, okay, great. We won a round. Simmons looked really good. If only Embiid would have been healthy, and like Embiid just didn't know how to play basketball yet, kind of like, because he was just lost in the Celtics series. Then I'm pretty sure that next year, that's the Toronto year, correct? That's where like they bring Markelle back. It's not working, and then they trade for Tobias, and then they go for Jimmy Butler, correct? Or am I skipping a season?
I think it is, but either way,
it's around the same era. But
either way, I can make this conversation that this year was successful, Colin. So if you want to play the game, we can play it. It's all perspective. It's all whatever you feel. Like, you had the MVP of the goddamn league on our team. Was it successful? That's not successful. You won when guys missed a lot of games. You won despite it. You won 50+ games again. 55+ games again. That's not successful? Like, I think a lot of organizations would say, hey, that's successful. That doesn't mean that's what it's all about. It doesn't mean that's not our end result. It doesn't mean we don't want championships. I get all that. Nobody wants Broad Street more than me, right? But at the end of the day, to say it's like, that's not at all successful. Not at all. Well, because it's the way it ended. I get it. But to say none of that in between is not successful is not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. It's not. You can go through all these years and pick out successful stuff because Ryan just did it, and maybe he knew he was doing it, but he just did it. You run all 16 in a row. Well, that's pretty successful going into the playoffs. Just didn't end the way. Yeah, this didn't end the way you wanted to. The year with Jimmy,
team. They weren't ready to win.
The year with Jimmy, that's successful until it wasn't. Okay, till it wasn't. That's how that works. The following year, all right. After that, okay, then it's Atlanta. That we can all agree on. If that was Atlanta, whatever, we kept forgetting the bubble, right? Yeah. Then Atlanta, we can all agree that that's not successful. We can all agree that. We can all wrap our heads around that. You know what? Guess what? The way that was because we were the favorite. Because we were the favorite. That's the difference. Because we were the favorite, that's not successful. Okay? Now, you go to last year, like, that wasn't a successful year until the guy broke his freaking face. Like, we finally got rid of the loser. We finally got rid of Ben. We got Harden, right? Like, okay, so that year is going to be a little weird. It's going to be hard to win.
the way I can argue it being somewhat of a successful year last year was that we rose above it looking like it was going to be a punt year. It looked like at the beginning of last season, it was going to be a punt year. It was going to be, okay, this Simmons thing is going to be the theme for the entire year. We'll be lucky to be able to trade him at all. We don't have a point guard. We don't know what Embiid's going to be without Simmons, because remember, that was the whole conversation. Oh, they can't play without each other, or sometimes they can't play with each other. And you end up getting rid of Simmons. Maxey elevates to, obviously being one of the more exciting players in the city. You get Harden, and then you go on a little bit of a run where it's exciting, and then boom, broken face. Right? So there was a lot going in prior to the year, which kind of made things get weird before they even, there was a tip-off. It's weird because if you make the argument, right, Tom, like that this year, for example, because of the regular season success, the MVP, all that stuff, you could argue that was a success. Well, shouldn't we factor that in? And I'm not playing this side. I think it's an absolute failure 3 years ago. But the Atlanta season, you're the number one seed, right? You had that was the most accolades outside of the MVP, which we all were talking about, all of us.
But that's
about how do we really care about the MVP award?
But I'm arguing with Colin. Okay. So he wants to put words in my mouth. So I'm going to argue with Colin. So I'm not telling anybody that, okay, I said, you're the one seed. You're the number one seed. You're a favorite. That's a failure. But to tell me years where you go 50, 55 plus wins, you get the MVP of the league, and you lose to a team that's essentially better than you, that's some kind of huge freaking failure. I find it hard to believe. No, it's not. That was 3 years ago. That was 3 years ago when you lost at home versus a team that you're better than. And you proved it all year. So, you can go through every year and go, success, not a success. It's every year. We fired a coach and people are going to say, well, that's because it wasn't successful. No, that's because time ran out. Right? That's because time ran out.
Change something.
Yeah, time runs out. So, listen, I don't want to be the guy that's praising the Sixers over here. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that I'm not saying that we just sit here and we're all about regular season wins and that's what matters to us. No. I'm not saying that. I'm putting it all into a body, into a conversation, Colin. I'm saying an MVP, 55 plus wins, right? Oh, you get smacked in the face. You lose to Boston in 7. Okay, yeah, I know how we lost, so it makes it a little bit unsuccessful for sure. But doesn't mean there's not moments.
You would agree that this, if it's not failure, it was a gigantic missed opportunity this season, right? For numerous things. I won't even just say the Game 6, Game 7 thing. I will say just because you look at how the East was, transpiring after the first round. Milwaukee is gone. You everything. It seemed like we had a window. You know what I'm saying? And not only in the East, but of how things were looking in the West, to where the team that was, ends up winning the title was arguably, we were the one team that actually matched up well against them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. How things played out, it could have been, you looked at it and you're he just got by Boston.
Mm-hmm.
He just got by Boston. But guess what would have happened to us? We would have
lost
Miami. Yeah, we lost Miami and Jimmy would have taken our lunch. So,
sure.
Listen, right. See, that's the thing where Colin, I love you, but I'm just going to throw it right back in your face for a second because, so you're telling me you beat Boston. Now the whole season's a success. And then you lose in the Eastern Conference Finals? No. So we're judging it. You're judging it. And everybody else out there is judging off second-round exits. And that's it. No. Because you're going to say to me, oh, now it's all championships? Because if people beat Boston, people are running around with their little things out. Right? We're running around with our little things out. All of us. Myself included. Okay? Because that's how fans operate. That's how we operate. But you can't go both sides here. We're judging this people are saying absolute failures because of the second round stigma. No, it's fair. In championships, I said to start the show, then it's always a failure because everybody's a failure. It doesn't cut the nets down. But that's sports. There's always going to be somebody who loses. If we just didn't get second round pounded in our heads, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Then it would be something different.
That's what kills me. It's that it's not even like we were a round off. It's not even like we were there and we got swept. If we would have gotten, like, we're just doing, hypotheticals at this point. We would have gotten to, the finals. We would have gotten swept and we would have gotten blown out by 40 to the Nuggets. Would we be saying that's a success? No, we'd be pissed because Jokic would have walked all over our Embiid. You know what I'm saying? We would have been pissed. If we go last year, oh my God, we got past the second round, but we would have gotten blown out, to Milwaukee in the third round.
We're going to be okay.
No, we would have been hurt, but guess what? At least it would have been something a little different. At least it would have been progression, and I'm not saying progression equals success. I'm not saying lack of progression equals failure. I'm just saying, it's
real quick, right? If you sit here and anybody else sits there, Colin, and you say, and we say that this team wasn't right there, so close again, and they weren't a successful group together, outside of the last, let's say, 24 minutes of a series, right? Like, you're right there. Oh. You're right there. So to say that, like, for us to say that's an absolute failure is almost unfair because it's a different group. It's a different team. It just is. Like, this team was good. This team was very good. And they were so close to getting over their own little hurdles. But the only hurdle that's there for that is organizationally and Joel. It's not like everybody comes in and everybody that we sign or trade for has never been past the second round, right? So it's like weird. It's like it's hard to like.
I think to your first part of your question, no, I can't deny what you're saying because I went from somebody who did not believe for a second they were going to beat Boston before the series to Game 6. I'm like, oh, we're going to win. We were live on the air. I'm like, we're going to win. 5 minutes to go. If you say you have to bet either way, I'm betting 100% we're winning that game. I would have never guessed what would have transpired. Okay, so they made me believe. And I came all the way on the other side. I think and I'm not going to speak for the entire fan base, but I think for a portion of this fan base, especially me, why we were so hurt by it, right? And I think the emotion still lies there. It's because this team, going right to your point on how you could argue for big portions of the season, you could argue this team was different, right? They were geared to win. They were ready. It's because they showed traits and different ways that they were different, whether it was, games that they were down 15, going to the fourth quarter and they come back and win. Or games where, I'll just name all of November where it's Shake Milton, Tobias Harris running the team, and that propels them to be one of the hottest teams from December 2nd on. You know what I'm saying? Like little things like that, bringing in a PJ Tucker, all these things. They look like they were ready. The way that they won in games in Brooklyn, too. Like, that's how nuts it is. Like, the series before it all goes downhill in Boston, it was so refreshing because it's like, oh, Embiid kind of sucks. Then he gets hurt, and you're still finding a way to sweep him. Then you go into Boston, you win game 1. Harden, like, has a, oh, my God, he's resurrected. He's back. And then somewhere in that game 6, everything reverts. Right? It's almost like part of like the end of game 5, I believe, when Embiid's starting to get passive and it's like, oh my God, the MVP's got to get a pep talk from 38-year-old PJ Tucker. Then the MVP doesn't get the ball for 5 minutes. And it's like, I thought about this so much. It's like, did he not get the ball because he was just tired because of the injury? Or did he not get the ball because, like, we all know as competitors, like MVP or not, just as a competitor, if I'm like the guy on the team and I'm not getting the ball, I'm going nuts on the sideline. Like, you better freaking get me the ball or I'll come after you. It was just weird. It was everything that we thought we knew about this team flipped in those last 5 quarters of the season. And it's like, was that all a lie? Like everything that we did in this season? But I don't know. That's the thing that just
it's not. Part of me thinks during game 6, when we had that momentum, when we had to retake those free throws, everything, just that, all the momentum that Sixers had going into those free throws, when we had to redo those free throws, and that absolutely disastrous no goaltending call killed any remaining momentum for that game.
I agree. You could see it, Frank. And then
you saw the momentum was gone, and then when game 7 came around,
there's pressure all the time.
Surrendered.
There's pressure
like the French.
The last 5 minutes of that game, like you think these guys don't know on what's over their head? So like you start I don't know. You start pressing. I can't get into the psyche, and I'm sure Zach's not going to get into like, well,
of course,
and like the deeper stuff. Like Embiid didn't want the ball, or he wanted the ball too much, or what. I don't have those answers, right? Like I'm not on the court.
And of course, like you try to run an offense, you didn't see anybody running an offense. You see people trying to draw fouls. Like, like what kind of strategy is that when you're up 3-2 in a series? I believe they still have the lead. When the retaking of
you guys did
the free throws,
yeah,
we did.
You did.
So, like, actually run an offense, actually do something instead of trying to get more charity stripe shots. Like, do something. You had the upper hand, get that momentum back, and seal the deal. That's all you had to do.
I think that's something, Tom, you and I talked about in real time during our game reactions. That's like, when's the last time we saw a pick and roll? It's all we heard about all year. Oh my God, wait until we get to the playoffs with this pick and roll, be unstoppable. As soon as you get against Boston, it's like, oh, okay. All right, that was fun. That's just a regular season thing. Then we just went to ISO ball, dribble. And I get it. Embiid's hurt.
Oh, shit, 7 seconds left. I got to pass.
Yeah, dribble. Then I'm going to pass off to Niang
when
he's not tripping Jaylen Brown on the sideline.
No, I mean, it was there. we reverted back. And everybody out there, like, listen, I would have traded everybody within the first 24 hours. So, I mean, I get it. Right? I'm just going to look at it as a whole over this air quote era of Embiid, that not all of it has been a failure. And when not all of it's been a failure, I'm going to lean to the side of disagree for right now that it's an absolute failure. But it's pretty close.
Would you say this offseason's been a failure, Tom, so far?
I mean, I think anybody with a fucking pulse would say this offseason has been a little bit of one. But I mean, it's been bad.
What's the number one? What's the number one F up by them so far, would you say?
This offseason?
Yeah.
They didn't do anything. So there's the number one F up. They didn't do anything. They haven't done anything. There's nothing to even F up when you don't do anything. They didn't do nothing.
True.
They didn't do nothing. And if they did do something, the biggest F up is why the hell are you matching that contract for Paul Reed?
Paul Reed.
You're matching that you're matching that contract?
You gotta get him out of the mud. How to help him up.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, to each their own. Maybe, hopefully it works. But
can I be honest with you, Tom? And this is going to be an eye roll probably by you, and I understand it. I think Paul Reed's going to be the starting four.
I mean, it's not an eye roll because it's the facts of your center plays more outside than inside anyway. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not telling you I like it. I'll probably foul it in 8 minutes, but
yeah,
I can understand it when your center's never download to begin with. You know, and it definitely gives you some better defense, maybe. I don't know. I mean, well, I can get into that at a different time. We'll get into that in October. But right now, they just haven't done anything, right? So like that's their the biggest thing they've done wrong.
Well, it's a shame too, because I think the one thing, and I mean, this isn't like, brain surgery that he pulled off, but when we talk about the allegiance to one James Harden, I think the only positive thing that Daryl did was that he judged the Harden market properly.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were all very afraid because of everything that they've been through, the two best friends, that he was going to give him guaranteed money, bring him back on a 2, 3, maybe even 4-year extension. Right. Like that was our fear. We were like, there's no friggin' way. But we all had that fear because of who Daryl and James are. And he didn't do that. And then you get the whole betrayal. Harden feels betrayed, of course, because he was your best friend. He basically gave you money for not really doing much. Very good player, great player, in his day, but that was like 5-6 years ago. And now you lead to where you are now, where, like the Clippers aren't even giving up Terrence Mann, right? Like I was having this conversation with my dad a couple of days before the whole Harden thing came out, right before free agency opened. And I was saying, don't you find it funny that other than Houston, the Sixers, and like the Suns for 5 seconds before they got Beal, there was no other team rumored to be linked to James Harden. Not one. And this is a James Harden who's always linked to people. Always. There's not one team. I'm like, this is a guy who I'm pretty sure he either led the league in assists or he was like second this year. He had those monster games in the playoffs. Obviously, he followed up with, duds right after that. But like he had a good year, a very good year at times for us. And there's no market for him. And Daryl judged that perfectly. He's like, no, you're gonna come back for what we want, or you're just gonna play under your contract. You're not a
Ryan, you are right.
I mean,
He is
there's a
the
market.
assist leader, by the way.
Yeah, and there's a market. It's not a max market. That's the problem. That's where Harden, thought there was going to be that market. Like there's a market for him. It's just not a market of I'm going to give you max money, right? So that's where like I'll disagree with that a little bit because there's always a market for guys like that. It's just he thinks his market's higher than it really is, right?
Yeah.
The player. So, but Philly sports is big. Like that's such an irrelevant move. Like how am I wrong? Like, okay, we're wrong about what? The biggest problem they did this all season was nothing. That's nothing too, right?
I think being sarcastic.
That's sarcasm.
No, he's saying that's the worst move. Like I'm wrong because they signed Patrick Beverly. That's not not that because they didn't do anything.
Gotcha.
But like nobody's going to give James Harden max money, and James Harden thought that somebody out there or knew that nobody out there was going to give him max money and tried to play the Houston game, or his agents tried to play the Houston game and drum that up when I sat here and told all you guys that that's bullshit from the beginning. Not that you guys said otherwise. I'm just saying that I can speak for myself, said that that's not real. Why would they want him? Why would they go that direction? Doesn't make sense. They're going the opposite direction. So here we are. Here we are. Yes. Okay. Philly Sports Big. We're back. But either way, they haven't done anything besides like little stuff, right? That like maybe could be good, maybe could be bad. But I think it's going to get worse because this guy now has made it very clear that he doesn't want to be here.
Well, we got Fat Suit. He's gonna show up to camp. Yeah, he did in Houston too. It was hell. Demarcus Cousins was like wanted to fight him, and Demarcus Cousins was in Houston for 5 seconds, and then like after like 2 games, he's like, "Really? Like this is what we didn't sign up for this. This is ridiculous." Man. Like, how did we get? Didn't we just do this with Simmons? Like, didn't we just do this? Like, he's gonna hold out. We got it. The GM's gonna play the long game with the trade, which like I get
about
like,
2 summers ago.
Yeah, like Ralphie, we were just here. Like
it's another summer. That's what I'm saying about the whole consistency of the roster. There has been no consistency with this roster. It's been up and downs. It's been a roller coaster. You guys haven't been able to have a core group of guys that have been here longer for more than a year, right? How long? I know it's JJ Redick, right? But like JJ Redick, right? For what was it? Was a year, right? And then he was gone, and then you brought somebody else.
It was 2 years, yeah.
And then the whole Ben Simmons thing, and then Ben doesn't play, so now you got to bring in a guy that Joel's got to get chemistry with again for a whole summer, and then you bring in James Harden for in the middle of the year, right? And now you got to build chemistry with him, and then the whole summertime comes, you get a whole year of James Harden, and then the summertime comes again, and now James Harden wants out. So now you gotta flip the roster again. Right? Now you got to flip the roster again, and now you have to find another guy that can play alongside of Joel Embiid. I think the only guy that has been here throughout Joel's consistently has been Tobias Harris.
I was going to say
has been Tobias Harris.
Mr. Consistency.
Think about this. Yeah. Think about this.
2019.
Tobias Harris has been shitted on by multiple Sixers fans throughout the city. Drugged through the mud, no pun intended, Paul Reed, okay? And he hasn't said shit. Except for this summer. This was the only time he's opened up his mouth about the whole fans trade. About wanting him out of the city and trading.
Is he wrong?
He's not. I mean, he's not wrong. Right?
No, because Ryan, Ralphie's like he hasn't said shit, and you're like, but that's just the facts, right? The crumble cookie.
Yeah.
Like the people would trade him for anything.
Oh my God,
for sure. And he's been the most consistent. outside of everybody else, he has been the most consistent player besides Joel. Besides Joel, ever since he put on that Sixers uniform, that 2 a.m. trade that Elton Brand had, where everybody was sleeping and everybody woke up and realized, oh shit, we got Tobias Harris
And Boban.
Nice, Elton. This is 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? This is a 3 a.m. morning. He's been the most consistent player besides Joel Embiid, and his name has been through the mud ever since he signed that contract, and it's been. Well, he's not living up to it. Well, he's the third guy, and he's getting third. He's the third
fourth
guy, and he's putting up points as a third guy.
He's a fourth.
Oh, the fourth guy.
That's the problem. I told you guys this all season. I'd rather have Maxey, Tobias, and Embiid.
And the same thing. I forgot. I can't believe I got him. Jimmy Butler, right? Trade for him. You traded for him mid-season, right? Now you got to build chemistry up and go on a playoff run, and then the summertime comes, and Jimmy's like, I'm not feeling this anymore.
Well,
I want out. So
Ralphie,
now you got to flip the roster again, right? You get Josh Richardson out of it, and that's basically it. You get Josh Richardson out of Jimmy
now
Butler.
back in Miami,
That's all
by
you
the way.
got, though,
Yeah.
right? Out of it. So then the whole Ben Simmons thing. Summertime comes, I don't want to play here no more. Now you got to flip the roster again. Now you get James Harden in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the season, go on a little playoff run. That we all know what happens, and then here comes the summer again. Another player wants out of Philadelphia, and it's now you got to flip the roster again and hope for the best with Joel Embiid. But like I said, Tobias Harris has been the most consistent player besides Joel Embiid so far throughout this whole entire era.
Ralphie, to your point, I just want to build on that because I think all of what you're saying, especially on how we kind of had to tie our organization to free agents, sometimes older free agents that either are here for a second, then don't come back, or they just don't pan out. I think that's all rooted to you not capitalizing on your draft picks. Honestly, the Embiid thing is obvious, right? The Simmons thing, I'll leave that alone, right? Because at least there's flashes, and we know that what that turns into, that's hard. But let's go elsewhere, okay? Markelle Fultz turns into Jonathan Simmons. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, Tom. It's a disgrace, okay? Michael Bridges turns into Zaire Smith. Zaire Smith, who never plays, turns into Tony Bradley. Okay, that's a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
Top 10 pick ends up being
real
Tony Bradley.
quick, before you finish this.
Yes.
Everybody can do this. This is that, where are we going with this? Because, every organization is going to have hits and misses. You know what I mean? So, you're always going to have to go look outside your organization, right? You got a generational piece, right? And then you thought you did with Simmons. Again, like you said, we'll leave him alone. But the rest of it's I don't know what Mikal Bridges is going to be. And anybody out there that wants to act like they knew Mikal Bridges was going to be that good of a basketball player, that's unfair, right? It's unfair because he was good at Nova. He wasn't that. He wasn't this. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody really thought he was going to be that good of a pro. Hence why he wasn't, or he would have been a top 5 pick, right? So him, I won't go with, because if I want to say him, then I could go, okay, well then you went hit a pick at 20, and it was Maxey. So it's that's give and take, right? You're going to be misses, is my point, where you're going to have to go try to find somebody to pair with your star. Not everything works as easy as it was in Denver, where it's okay, I got Joker and I drafted Murray, and they're my tandem for the future, right? If you look around, most people have to go and try to find that other thing to pair with their guy.
This is why I bring it up, though. They're lottery picks. They're top 10 picks.
It doesn't mean they're always hits.
No, but where's the hit? Other than Embiid, which was
you can't say other then. We can't say other because not
we
all
had seven of them. We had 7. We had 7 that we didn't hit. So we
after
had 1 out of 8.
Embiid, how many after Embiid? How many lottery picks after Embiid? We're talking about the Embiid era.
Simmons, Fultz.
I'm pretty sure Nerlens was before.
Nerlens was before. MCW was before.
Zaire.
Well, we're talking. I mean, listen. Let's keep it in perspective. Let's stay within the top 7, 8 of a draft here. We know that the chances are hit. We know this. Outside the top 3, what are your chances? Everybody was always hitting. You know what I mean? There's still a lot of misses around the league. You know what I mean?
But don't turn a lottery pick into Tony Bradley and Jonathan.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the misses. I'm not talking about what they do after the fact. We all know that. I'm saying, to be fair about it, is okay, you're gonna miss some things. I'm I'm not saying I like it. I'm just trying to be fair to the whole roast of the Sixers on certain things, right? Like certain things I'll be like, okay, like I get it. I don't like it now that you trade Zaire Smith. You traded Markelle Bridges for Zaire Smith. I don't like it. But at the time I didn't know better, right? Like I didn't know that was like, oh, this is gonna be the most egregious trade you ever heard of.
Well,
right.
But no, because you and I talked about it on the show literally the next week, though, Tom. We said that the whole reason why they did that, they took a guy who could come in and start on a contending roster. That was Markelle Bridges.
Yeah, but we didn't know how good.
No, but it's not even about Bridges. It's not even about that. You trade him for Zaire Smith, who was a project from Texas Tech. You knew that he was going to be in the G League for 2 years. The only reason why you took him, it's because of the Bryan Colangelo thing that happens 2 weeks prior. And you took that because you thought you were going to pair that and a first-round pick for Kawhi Leonard.
Listen, all that I get. But, like, you want to talk to me prior Embiid, then talk to me prior Embiid. Talk to me all the shit that you missed prior. Like that's my point. Like, we then hit a big hit. Now, would I have loved that maybe hit one more of those? Sure, it would have been nice. Would have been nice. But like I can't get too deep into that because you did hit generational. So sometimes after that, you have to go and like you did hit Maxey, right? So like you then hit another really good hit. So like you're gonna have hits and misses. And the other side of that is it was never the same. Like when you look at it, like it was Colangelo, then it was Elton. Right, and Brett, and then it was that. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like that hasn't even been consistent to our point about consistency. And Ralphie thought about consistency. So like, I get like why. This was my argument from the beginning of it. Like, you hit a generational guy, and then you were trying to go find that best pair up, and we thought it was Simmons, and like you said, there was flashes of Ben being that guy, right? Didn't turn into it, but like to be fair, organizationally, like it's all hindsight 2020. It's all Monday morning quarterback because now we know what they were. Like nobody knows, right? Like nobody knows. That's the crazy thing about drafting. That's my point. Is like we're lucky we got him beat.
Well, good thing Hinkie was still in the building. Yeah,
you can still be drafted. That's the point of drafts. Like Anthony Bennett's and the list goes on misses around the league on big misses.
The reason why I even bring up the whole draft thing anyway, it's because you look. And we had this conversation a few months ago before the whole Boston thing even happens. But you look at the most successful, organizations in the sport right now. You look at how they acquired their people. I'm not even going to say the Warriors. I'll just leave them out because that's the easy conversation, right? I'll just leave them out. Okay? You talk about the teams that have been contending for titles or won titles. It's all draft picks. It's not, oh, let's get a big four. Let's not do super team. It's all draft picks.
You don't got to tell me.
Well, no, but so that's why I bring it up. It's that if there's a team of the last 10 years that wanted to do the pick thing and do it at a large margin, it was us. And we are the team out of anybody. If you compare everything, the teams that are like, hey, let's go pick crazy, we're like last on the list. That's why I bring it up. It's not that
this is my hindsight 2020. But this is my hindsight 2020 because back then we're not saying that. That's the fair part. Like, if we're going to be fair, we can't act like we didn't all think Ben Simmons was going to be the next LeBron James at one point, right? So, like, to be fair to the organization, right? Markelle Fultz, like Mark just said, like, that dude was an elite scorer in college. This wasn't like some dude who was just like, oh, that's a reach. Like, that dude was an elite scorer, and everybody around knew it. Right.
So then he's number one for a while.
Yeah. So then he gets hurt. It's not like my point is, it's like we almost that's the only pick that we didn't go with the board, maybe. But the board was telling a lot of people that was the projected number one pick of that draft because there really wasn't one. Right. There really wasn't like now, okay. Now you can say, oh, it's Tatum. Then it wasn't Tatum. It wasn't that easy. No. It wasn't that easy on paper is my point. So Simmons, Fultz, like, they're anomalies. Like one of those two should have been a hit, and you just so happen that one will never shoot, and then one can't. Like it really weird. That's the point. Is I'm trying to make it like it really weird shit happened, which is typical us in the city of Philadelphia. But like I hear you. Like drafting wins on every franchise, not just here. Like not just Sixers. Like when you talk about the Phillies, the reason the Phillies have won recently is Stott and Bohm. Like you got to hit picks. Like it can't just be all to your point, yeah, you can't go star hunting all the time.
Mhm.
You're never going to win that way. We didn't really, to be fair to the Sixers, like we went star hunting around our draft picks. Like we traded stuff away to go get Jimmy and to get Tobias, right? To try to win, but around our two guys, right? Like there's all kinds of different ways to look at it. The days of LeBron's, like, oh, we gotta team up with each other. Like they haven't really worked.
No,
obviously.
No. It only worked when it was the extreme, when it was you're pairing guys up with the best player on the planet at that time. No, the only reason why I'm not saying it, I don't think it's hindsight 2020 because it's, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but it's not the fan. Like, of course the fans are going to buy it, right? It's not us. Like, we're not making the damn picks, right? It's their jobs at the time to realize, oh my God, there was, and I'm not saying that going back, we would have taken Brandon Ingram. I understand that. But there were a lot of bad signs about both of these guys, Simmons and Fultz, before they were drafted, right? I'm not saying that we saw it come.
Not Fultz, though.
Oh, with the workout, absolutely.
What workout?
He had 2 private workouts with the Sixers, and he didn't make a shot in the first one. He looked completely out of shape. He looked lost. That was the whole thing with the motorcycle. They had every opportunity to get out of there, and they consider like, okay, this is the guy. There are horror stories about that workout, that private workout before the draft with the Sixers. They had every opportunity to not trade up for that pick, every opportunity. But, and we understood at the time because you and I both, we wanted either De'Aaron or we wanted Fultz, right? So we're not going to act like we didn't want Fultz. We were excited because, like, oh my God, somebody who looks like an instant scorer to pair with a big man like Joe and somebody who really doesn't want to score, but who can defend like hell and bet. Like, on paper, it's the perfect match, just like it would have been. And of course, we look back and like, oh my God, what if we would have stayed at 3 and gotten De'Aaron, right? Like,
keep in mind now, real quick. Like, I understand what you're saying, and they're the ones on the know, okay? And it's their job to know. I get it, right? But there's a lot of guys through the history of sports, right, that didn't look good in a draft workout. That A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay, just to play devil's advocate with it. That haven't looked good, that became stars. So
hopefully Jalen Carter.
It doesn't always, right? Like it doesn't. Sometimes you're like Ben probably looked great. I'm telling you right now, Ben Simmons probably made you want to drop your damn drawers in his pre-draft workout. He was probably the complete opposite of Fultz in their draft workouts, right? So it's like it's hard. Like I hate the Sixers right now. I'm so tired of it. Like even talking about tonight, I'm annoyed. And I'm annoyed that I'm disagreeing because I'm trying to play the other side and have some fun and some conversation tonight. So it's not just a circle jerk fest of all of us agreeing. So I'm trying my best to fight for the other side tonight. I just want everybody to know that. Like I'm just trying to look and fight for the other side because through it all, again, you got a generational dog here. So like through it all, you got the MVP of the league. Okay, and once you get one of those guys, you usually don't draft another one. And the fact that we got him and Maxey now, I think we need to start as a fan base rallying around that. Like going back to what you just said, rallying around homegrown stuff. Rally around those 2 players. Okay? Start rallying around it. Now that you have player development guys better in here, and now you have go back and watch, Casey. You think I got the goddamn time or I care enough to go back and watch that kitty cat do anything? But you watch him in pre-draft workouts too. Right.
I don't think the workouts are taped. That's why they're called private workouts. So
all seasons. All seasons, right? Did he not look great?
Oh, I'm sure his workout was the best of all time. He's probably shooting freaking elbow jumpers. He was shooting half-court shots.
Shit, dude. Look at his summer league. He was shooting jumpers.
I was watching it the other night, Ralphie.
Yep, and preseason games against Chinese teams. Yeah.
Ralphie, that was the greatest summer league game of all time. He looked tremendous. He looked like he was better than LeBron. No, Tom, you're absolutely right. I wish the organization would rally around that and just kick this guy to the curb, Mr. Harden.
Well, I think they did. I think Daryl Morey did. I think so many words and so many conversations that they did by not paying it, right? They literally said no. Because, listen, I'm going to give Daryl a little bit of credit, and I'm not a Daryl guy. But if you're a good executive and you know what you have coming off your books the following year, you're an asshole. You're a jackass to give that guy max money or any bit of it or even a 3-year deal. Like you're crazy. You say, you know what? Then you can play on your 1-year deal or you can take way less than you want to take for a longer type deal. But we're not tying our horse to you, right? We're not tying our cart to you. Sorry, we're not tying our cart to you because we have something here with those two guys, and we have a lot of money the following year. So the way I look at it with the Sixers, it's like, hey, they're going to probably get some 1-year deals, stuff like that, whatever they do, right? And they're going to let those three guys. And if Harden plays, he plays. If not, they deal him and they get back whatever assets that they can get back, right?
Wash their hands with it, because
if it's picks, right? If it's
whatever,
picks, whatever, you start fresh with that and you say, hey, because I told you, we talked about this plenty. I said that I feel like the offense would run way better with those three guys. I'm going to keep standing by it until it doesn't, right? But I'm going to keep trying to stand by that because we talked about the hope. And the hope. We still have a generational player here. Well, so can he figure it out? I don't have that answer either tonight.
I'm not saying – I'm going to make it very clear because I can hear people typing already. Oh, Ryan, you're good with mediocrity when you have an MVP on the team. I'm not good with anything they do, okay, right now. For the most
still
part.
Win 50 games. It's to riddle everybody that.
But see, that's the thing, right? That we've seen so many alterations of this team. Hell, we were one of the best teams in the NBA, and we didn't have a damn point guard a couple years ago, right? So I would just remind everybody of this. But I would just love it if the Sixers just wash their hands with this Harden thing, fill in the pieces so we don't have freaking Daniel House starting at the 3, for God's sakes. And you go into it, at the very least, like you said, Tyrese, Tobias, Embiid. At the very least, you go into it, hey, we might not be the best team in the NBA, but we're going to find out how good Tyrese Maxey is before we have to pay him next year. Because this time next year as of like a month ago, we're going to have 2 wide open max contract slots. Mm-hmm. Am I saying Maxey's going to get the max? Who the hell knows? Let's see how good he plays.
Right.
But if I can go into next year, Harden being gone, Tobias being off the books, saying, okay, I'm excited about next year because we have an opportunity. Hey, can we, by the start of, not this coming season, but next season, we have Maxey, Embiid, and Pascal Siakam in here with the coach that was with them when they won a title? He's a free agent. He could be a max contract guy. You know what I'm saying?
And don't even be surprised. Like, I know you talked about fat suit, and I get that that's like the common theme, but also don't be surprised if the guy plays, because if his agents and his inner circle isn't smart about this, he'll never get any money. So his best option is to take $39 million and put his tail between his legs and play his best basketball if he wants the money he wants.
Yeah, I think he's going to play too, because again, nobody's going to get in the psyche of James Harden. He's just
a lot of money to leave on the table, bro.
Well, he's already left $125 million if you look at some of the contracts that he's turned down because he wanted to go elsewhere over the past 4 years. Over $125 million. He's got. I would imagine he has some kind of loyalty or respect towards Maxey, Tobias, and Embiid, right? Like he's not gonna fat suit them. Like, right? Like he might do what he did in Brooklyn. I think it's going to be much closer to what we saw in Brooklyn, where like he's taking, he's got a hamstring. He's not playing tonight.
I don't think he can do that, right? That's why he's in the position he's in right now.
I hear you.
He's in the position right now, but what he did before, his best, if I'm in his camp, the best decision you can do is go ball, right? And then somebody will give you 3 years. Like nobody's going to max you ever again. And that's where, as a camp, you got to tell your clients the right things, even if it hurts their feelings sometimes.
That's why this thing that comes out today, right? It was yesterday, where he's doing a mini Damian Lillard thing, where like Damian's like, oh, I'll only play for Miami. Harden, apparently, it gets leaked out, oh, he will only play for the Clippers. So all teams around the NBA have been told, hey, if you trade for James Harden, he won't play for you. So you want to leave or not, dude? Because that just completely lowered your market. And your former best friend, Daryl, he's not going to trade you for scraps. If there's one guy left on this planet that's going to overvalue James Harden, it's him. It's the guy that you're, in a little bit of a
best friend
high school fight with right now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what do you want? I understand you want to get paid, but look at the calendar. It's not Houston of 2017 anymore, for God's sakes, James. It's not. If you wanted to get paid, how about don't turn down the money in Brooklyn when you're with your other 2 former best friends? Like, if you want to get out of here, fine. Then be willing to go wherever the best deal is so we can wash your hands of it. That way you can play and you could be in a perfect situation for a star so you can get paid. It's not going to happen, but who knows? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, or however the hell it goes. Like, you're limiting yourself, and it's just going to be prolonged and prolonged and prolonged.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, it's not good.
If you're the Clippers, right, and if there's any a semblance of truth, oh my God, Harden's only going to play for the Clippers. Well, I'm not sure, Ralphie, you would know this. You hate the Clippers. I'm not sure who their GM is. But if I'm their GM, I'm saying, well, he's only going to play for me. He doesn't want to play for you. The hell am I giving up stuff? No chance I'm giving up anything I want. We'll get freaking Marcus Morris Covington in 2 seconds. Right? Like, I would hope it's a little bit more. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no leverage. There's nothing. He's going to come here no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm their GM, I don't know why I even make the move when a guy's got a last year in his deal, unless yeah, exactly. Unless I'm desperate, and they may be desperate, right? They're always trying to compete with the other team in that city. It's always going to be an uphill climb for them, and the only way they do it is by air quote star power, and I say that very lightly. And there's always going to be hardball played on both sides, right? And right now, the Clippers are playing that hardball until they're not going to play hardball any longer, right? And that's where this is going to get to. It's going to get to because NBA players run the league, so it's going to get to the point where enough's going to be pressed Clipper land wise by players that this is what they want done type deal.
Ralphie is somebody who's a fan of a Western Conference team. If Harden lands there and you look at that team, right, and they don't give up PG, they don't give up Kawhi, like they give up some bench pieces, maybe Norman Powell, maybe Terrence Mann and a couple picks. How afraid are you of them?
They're a top four team. Top four team. But the other thing is now you're taking what made the Clippers so great is their depth, right? We've talked about for the past 2 or 3 years now. The Clippers bench has been amazing, right? They've just been the deepest team. It's just that PG and Kawhi just can't never stay healthy. They're always hurt, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're taking 2 of your pieces away and maybe like a draft pick or so, and you got to revamp that bench a little bit, right? Terrence Mann comes off your bench, and I know Norman Powell started for them a little bit, but I don't know if they're going to be going with him off the bench this year or if he's going to be starting from them this year. But like you said, if you take 2 pieces away, those guys that have been consistently, Terrence Mann, I think he averaged 13 this year off the bench for them. And I know Norman Powell started for them this year. The average had a pretty good year for them as well. Norman Powell's a pretty good player.
Real quick, I love Norman Powell, but real quick, the other side of that is their bench looks even better because obviously guys aren't playing that they expect to play, right?
Yeah.
So they are deep. That's factual. But I think if they look at it like, well, we expect these 2 guys to play, that's where they get enticed by this, right? Like that's where they get sold on this, and say, well, we still have a good bench, even if we trade 2 guys, right? Yeah. And they may look at it like that too, because they're getting a player back still. So if they traded 2 guys and picks, hypothetically, they still got a good bench.
And the thing with
right?
this situation too is that it's like, for the Clippers wise, am I really going to give up two of my best pieces that have been consistent for me when Kawhi and PG are out for a guy that, do I really want to give James Harden the money at the end of the day, right? That's what you got to ask yourself as a GM if you're going to trade for him, because you're going to have to, there's no way you're giving up 2 pieces off of your bench and a guy off your bench that's averaging what he's averaging, a pretty damn good player in Terrence Mann, and a guy in Norman Powell that's has been a solid player in the NBA so far, for a guy that has the recent history of, well, if it doesn't go my way, I'm out of here, right? You saw it with Houston, right? Didn't go his way, he's out of there, right? Wants to go to Brooklyn, right? Wasn't going his way in Brooklyn. All right, I'm out of here. Now in Philly, it's not going my way that I want it to go. So now I'm throwing my hands up and I'm out of here again.
Yes and no, Ralph, right? Yes and no, because they're not going to do it without the extension. And the extension is not going to be max money. We all know that.
Because I'm not giving up 2.
They can't.
I'm not giving up my best 3-point shooter on my team and a solid guy off my bench for a guy that's just going to be here for a year. I'm not doing that.
No.
I would never. I don't think any GM would do that.
This is a 3-year deal waiting to happen. They restructure it. Well, whatever, but they're not maxing them, and that's all that matters in the conversation because they can't. So, that's where it's like, to me, where they're not going to get, I don't get my way, Harden, in their eyes, right? In their eyes, they're not getting that guy. We all know what they're getting. We were fooled by it. Everybody's duped by somebody you don't see all the time, right? And rightfully so, right? Like Nets fans thought that they could get the best out of Ben, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else think they can get the most out of you. There's always, and the fan base especially, because obviously you don't get to watch everybody every night, right? Like we get binoculars on our guys, right? And you micro scout them per se, right? So, and this is circle back on Embiid, right? In his era, in the era of him, right? Is that if you polled every general manager around basketball,
they would trade for him in a heartbeat.
In seconds.
Yeah.
So that's the other reason on my like trying to play the other side is that like he's so good, we haven't got the finished good of him yet. Right? We've got like, hey, you're great for 72 games, and then
wait. And I don't want to bring this up. If the shoe was on the other foot and Joel asked for a trade and not Damian Lillard and his team was the Heat, he'll be in Miami right now on the beach.
Yeah.
To be completely honest. If Joel Embiid asks for a trade, and let's just put him in Damian Lillard's shoes, right? To the sense where, all right, I only want to go to Miami, and Miami's it, right? Joel Embiid's probably in Miami Heat right now, to be completely honest. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Well, not even just the players. Look at the freaking Damian Lillard contract. Guy who's been hurt the past 2-3 years. Like Damian Lillard, great player. Who the hell wants to pay him? What is it, 54 in a couple years?
Yeah, he's going to be 50.
It's going to be
52.
And I understand in a couple years with the way the salary cap is, $54 million might be cheap, right? Like this is what contracts are. But Tom, you mean all the beat reporters have said the last couple of days that, the Sixers are going to be forced into, because of his comments, he's going to be forced into, going to the Knicks, and we're only going to be able to get RJ Barrett and Julius Randle back.
Yeah, well, they're idiots. And so, I didn't get into this, and I wanted to. I wanted to do a video on it the other day, and I just didn't have the time to get one out. But the facts of the matter is, everybody that overreacts to what he said are idiots, and they're looking for clicks. That's all you're looking for. You're looking to have a hot take.
It's summertime.
Yeah.
He didn't say nothing. I mean, I listened to it 100 times. He just said he wants to win a championship. He said here or if it's somewhere else, and it's somewhere else. Like what's he going to say? Of course he wants to win it here. That's Joel being Joel. Like he says shit like that, and like we're going to get all worked up about it. Like if you don't want to be here, then don't be here. If he didn't want to be here, he wouldn't be here. That's how the NBA works. For star players, like just to riddle everybody this.
To be honest, if he didn't want to be here,
he
probably would have left with Jimmy. To be complete, if he didn't want to be here, he probably would have left with Jimmy.
Yeah, so like I hate these guys that just want to like react in the moment. Like if the guy didn't want to be here, take a step back, and he wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
and that's how it goes. That's how it goes in the NBA. Unlike every other sport, right, guys? Like that's how it goes.
Yep.
Players
run the NBA, man, and once your star players start saying, hey, I want this guy, get it done, and it's the GMs are like, all right, I gotta make my stars happy because if my other stars aren't happy, then I might be the one saying, hey, look, and we're looking to trade PG or Kawhi. You know what I mean? Just hypothetical, right? You got to keep your stars happy, and if both of your stars want that said player, it's just gonna get to the point where it's like,
that's why I think Harden. If Paul, Westbrook, and George, and Kawhi, sorry, if they all want Harden,
it's going to
Harden's going to be a Clipper.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it'll get done.
The thing that people miss too, that reported, and I can't believe people were like reporting. It shows how it's just summer. People were reporting on like iPhone footage about Embiid talking on the stage. But what they're either leaving out on purpose or they just don't even realize because they're not doing their homework. They're not even like understanding what that like interview was, right? Like it was a business conference because he's like launching his new business, right? So he's talking about his life on a global scale, right? Like he wasn't even like talking about basketball. Like he was asked like, what can we expect from you type thing. And he goes the route of like, I want to win a championship. So that's the first thing. This wasn't a podcast with Woj. This wasn't an ESPN interview with Malika freaking Andrews. Like it was It was a business conference with like potential investors into whatever his company is going to be, right? So like that's like what's gotten
You're not
lost.
Sweeten that interview up? Come on now.
Well, the second thing is like if he's talking about like a global business, of course he's going to throw in anywhere because he doesn't want to limit himself to just Philadelphia.
Right.
Like if I'm a business person, I'm going to be like, oh, I only got to do business in Philadelphia. Like, of course he's going to say everywhere if he even went that route. And if he didn't say that for that reason, listen, Joel likes some attention, okay? Like you said on Twitter, look at my middle name. He likes attention. You know why? Because he has us right under the palm of his freaking thumb. You know what I'm saying? Like he can say one word. He can type the word "the" on Twitter, and everybody's like, "What's this? What's this?
Shit.
What's this?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is it soccer? Is James like he put like 5 days or something? I think he was talking about the Tour de France. Everybody is like, "Oh, is Harden getting traded in 5 days?" It's like, no, I think he's talking about either soccer or Tour de France. It's the two things he kind of talks about.
I stopped listening to him like talk unless I want to like laugh about something funny he says.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't take anything these guys say like that literal like people do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, if he didn't want to be here, he wouldn't be here. We're in a good situation. You know, Tobias on the last year, his deal. When you get guys on the last year of their deal, you know, you usually get the best versions of players, right? You know, if Harden did stay here and play, then so be it. And you probably get the best version of him because he wants to get paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know. As much as it's been a really bad offseason, right? Really bad all season. This is going to be addition by subtraction. This is going to be a better basketball team for a lot of reasons. One is because everybody thinks they're not going to be. And two, Nick Nurse is probably a better X and O coach, right? Okay. He is. All right. He's a better X and O coach. Now he's a better motivator. I'm not going to go that far because Doc gets a lot of credit for like getting guys to go, right? But you know, I love some of the additions to the staff. I do, right? So I think that's a really good hire, and we'll see the benefit of that. And the other side is like you're gonna let these three guys. I think they fit better with each other. Like Harden never wants to run. And I'm not telling you Embiid wants to. I'm telling you Maxey and Tobias want to.
They definitely want to.
Like the best version of Tobias has always been downhill. The reason he was so good with that Clippers team before he got traded here, all right, was because he was they ran you out the gym, that team. If you really go back and look at that team,
6 games.
like they ran you, man. And that was the Doc team, and they ran you.
Well, they didn't have any superstars either. He actually had a defined role too. Like he had to be. It was him and like Lou Williams and Montrez.
And then this was like after this was post Lob City, so it was like, all right, what's this Clippers team going to be? And they were pretty competitive.
Let me look at that. Let me look at the 2019 Clippers. I just want to see what that roster was.
He played good, and I just think when the only superstar really that he has to really worry about is Joel, I think he's going to be better. I do. Because you got to remember, he like Ralphie said, he's the one who's been here the longest with Joel. Look at what's been around him.
Yeah.
If you think about it, they never once have given him the keys to shine, right? They pay him the money, but there's always been like, Jimmy's going to get touches over you, babe.
Well, and Tobias has never been the 2, right? He's always been it seems like Tobias has always been demoting every time.
He's always been
right?
the 3 or the 4, Ralphie.
3 or 4.
Always 3 or 4.
When Ben was here, he was the 3, right? And then they bring in Jimmy, and then you swap him down the 4, and then Harden comes, he's back to the 3. He's never been that number 2 guy for you, even though his numbers have been consistent so far. And like I said, in the Embiid era, he's been the most consistent player throughout this whole entire roller coaster of a ride so far.
Yeah, the last time he was a defined 2 was when we traded for him, right? When he was on the Clippers. I went back and I looked at that roster.
Yeah.
It was Patrick Beverly, Avery Bradley, Wilson Chandler, somebody named Angel Delgado. I don't even remember who the hell that is. Danilo Gallinari, Gilgeous Alexander, but he was a rookie. It was before he turned into Shea. Marcin Gortats, JaMychal Green, Montrez, Boban, Tobias Harris.
Just a lot of guys.
Yeah, a lot of guys that fit into a system. It was him and Lou Will. Like that, and that's what you got Tobias Harris. I think he averaged like 22 points that year.
He was an all-star.
Yeah, it was his best season underneath Doc.
And if he wasn't an all-star, he's pretty close.
Right there. He was right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was his best season under Doc. And I just think when you have a ball-dominant guy like Harden, you had a ball-dominant per se guy in Jimmy. You have Joel who needs his touches. It's hard to find your footing. I think with a younger player like Tyrese, it really puts him more into that 2, Tobias, that is. Like 2/3 on a given night, but I think you get a better version. Now, is that version, an all-star? I'm not going there. I'm just saying it's a better version of him.
He actually has a role. Everybody has a role. If Tyrese becomes the de facto point guard, Tobias Harris, he's the third scorer. Everybody has a role. How many times during the last couple years, especially last season, did we just talk about Tyrese and we talk about Tobias being like, can we get them the ball, please? Can we get him to do something? Can we get him going? Because we all know Tobias, he needs to get going early, right? If he doesn't get going early, he's just there.
Well,
right?
what does Nick
turns
like?
into a defensive stopper.
What does Nick like? Nick likes defense, right?
Hell yeah.
Defense and ball movement.
And ball movement. He doesn't like standing around.
No, and Patrick's going to play defense. PJ's going to play defense. Guys like Paul Reed will play defense. Tobias plays defense. Embiid plays defense. You know what I mean? So, like, in terms of that, like, he's sort of getting guys that fit his style of play a little bit, right?
Yeah.
A little bit. And there's still some more things that need to be done. And that's obviously moving on from Harden, and you can get some other things back.
Well, what I like about Tyrese, or I'm sorry, not Tyrese, about Nick Nurse. I like Tyrese, but I like about Nick Nurse is that I would imagine if he's anything close to what he was in Toronto, we're going to see a lot of different lineups, a lot of different combinations, players playing with different people, seeing how it works, depending on how, who we see, on the other side of the court, which I like, right? Like I want to see exactly what works and what doesn't work.
No, me too. And I think he'll be creative. I think, you'll see like, hopefully younger guys, like a guy like Jaden Springer can make a jump for this basketball team. So, I mean, there is some interesting, intriguing things when we start to get closer to this season. Obviously, we don't know what the final roster is going to look like, right? But I did say this before too, like, I don't want to trade Embiid either, Jason, but I was about to. And like everybody, listen,
I think everybody in the city of Philadelphia was ready to do everything.
Well, you always listen, right, Jason? That's the point, right? You always listen. Doesn't mean you have to pull the trigger, but like you're always open for business if you're good at your job. But I don't think they sign Nick Nurse if they're trying to trade Joel Embiid. Doesn't make sense.
Hypothetically, okay, if no other major moves are made, say we get like a back end of the roster guy and that's it, and Harden's off the team, right? Let's just say he goes home. He pulls a Simmons. What's your starting 5 on opening night?
Probably Maxey, Beverly, Tobias, probably Reed and Joel.
Am I nuts for saying Maxey, Beverly, Melton, Tobias, Embiid?
No, I mean, you can probably switch one out for the other. It depends who you're playing and what your matchups are, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that goes to Nick, right? Like, what's the matchup for tonight, right? What do we want to focus on? And then you have some things you can change around, right? Like some nights it might be Beverly coming off your bench and Melton starting next to Maxey, right? So it could be like all different combinations. I like either one of those two that we talked about, but I don't think you're going to get a Harden where he's either going to be here playing or he's going to be shit. Like there's not going to be like, oh, we're just going to hold on through November and then we're going to wait for people to call us. No, like that's going to get done. Like it's either going to get done that he's here or it's going to get done that he's not. And I think I speak for all of us. I prefer just to move on with it. I'm hoping, but
last question. When we talk about potential lineups and everything, you think Nick Nurse is diabolical enough to try a Bamba Embiid? Bamba at the 4? Try and turn Bamba into his Chris Boucher?
Oh my goodness.
No, I think anytime you're going to put Bamba in with Embiid, Bamba's playing the 5.
Oh, okay. So you're doing a little bit of that. Okay.
He can't stretch the floor like Joel can, right? Like he can't do it. No, not many big guys can, right? Like he's not. He doesn't have that offensive game Joel has.
He just has the range. He just has the ability to shoot from the outside. That's the only. He's pretty soft on the interior.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he does. Again, matchup wise, if it makes sense, I think you'll see more Paul though. Right, guys? Probably
Yeah.
more Paul Reed. Maybe.
Probably
I don't know.
Stark comes, or at least your 7th or 6th man.
You might see all big guys in at once. With Maxi's your point, and you have four fours and fives playing together.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we had an all big man lineup.
That'd be funny. I'd like to know who we would be playing for that.
Oh, jeez.
In Milwaukee, you're gonna roll out the length. We're gonna roll out the lanes when we play Milwaukee. But yeah, I mean, they definitely. It's weird. Like I haven't watched enough of Mo Bamba's game to know his abilities. But I see probably more of the chance of. I think you see a little Reed and Embiid. You might see sometimes Trez and Embiid. You might see sometimes, Mo Bamba and Embiid. I don't know.
Ralph, you got a scouting report on Bamba since he was on the Lakers for
He can
30
shoot a little
seconds?
bit, but his interior defense is okay.
Oh, you're going with okay? You're going with okay? That's the word you're using?
I mean, there was a song named after him. I mean, that's all I got.
Oh,
Nice got a report about Mo Bamba.
Yeah.
It's weird because the thing with Paul Reed, too, is everybody's saying, like, well, we're going to turn him into what he was in the G League. Well, first off, it's the G League. I understand he was G League MVP. It's like, oh, he was the 4. He won G League MVP as the 4. He was a shooter. Okay. I'm not saying he wasn't. I don't watch G League games. I'm sorry. How good of a shooter was he? Like, that's a genuine question. I'm not even acting like I know the answer. I had to go back and check the tape, as some people would say.
Who is this?
Paul Reed.
Paul
Like,
Reed?
he could shoot from 3 in the G League.
All
That's why he was the 4.
The one that's G League.
Yeah, like,
let's see.
If the thought process is, okay, he's a little undersized and he gets a little foul heavy when he's in the, in the paint, therefore we're going to turn him from a 5 into a 4. I would agree with that. But the whole thing of like, hey, we're going to go back to a 4 because he was a shooter. I'm not saying that's
shoot.
wrong.
I actually have the stats.
Go ahead. What do you shoot from?
So in the 2 seasons he did at the G League from the arc, his first season he was a 44%er.
How many did he shoot per game?
Per game, at average, 3 3-point attempts per game.
Okay.
And then his second season in Delaware, he shot 43.6% from the arc, from beyond the arc. And out of that was at an average of 4.3 3-point attempts.
All right. Good.
Game.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. If he could do that, then cool.
Yeah, if it translates well.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing that at the NBA level, but
hell no. But I'll act like that's going to happen for a second.
Yeah, I mean, if you slowly, instead of like having it right away, like have him slowly adjust to it. That's one thing, but
if he was doing that,
expecting it right away, no thanks.
If he was doing that in the G League, I would hope that Doc isn't that dumb to be like, oh, this guy was capable of that from the 4. Let's turn him into a backup center. I would hope Doc's not that out of touch.
Well, I mean, he's also a guy who wasn't fouling at that rate in the G League. And every time he stepped on an NBA court early on, he couldn't keep his hands on himself. So, I mean, it's hard to judge that. We're only going to judge it over time if he can do some of those things. But I don't know. I'm not gonna wish for that to happen, or like put my eggs in that basket, as I should say.
Martian, I'm not saying he's trash, right? Like, listen, he came up big in that Nets series a couple times, right? But I don't know. I just see a lot of celebrating and a lot of, Nick Nurse is here. Paul Reed's going to be the next Siakam. It's like, turn him into the next freaking Precious Achua first.
The only way you get love from like Sixers Nation is if you overly crown like guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you overly crown just guys, seems like Sixer Nation you get a lot of love. You gotta crush the stars and love
and
the average
and the coach,
and you gotta love the average, and that gets everybody that gets the clamor, right? Like, this guy sees what I see. Like, Casey, I love you. I am not going back and watching 2020 and 2021 NBA G League highlights of Paul Reed.
No,
oh my God.
If people want to do that tonight, God bless. I'm not going to do that.
More of a 3 in the NBA. Are we okay?
No. He's too slow.
You gotta be able to dribble a little bit, guys. Are we all right? We got a problem with
That's
Joel.
the other thing too. The guy can't. Anytime he puts the ball down, it's a freaking turnover.
Like, are we serious? When you watch this guy play, you see 44% from 3. Go. Listen, if that's what everybody sees, let's go.
I'm telling you,
I'm in. But
if I didn't see a thread twice in the last 2 weeks, or ever since we signed Paul Reed back, of people talking about, hey, let's get Siakam, let's trade for Siakam, and then people that have platforms in this city saying, who says we need Siakam? We might already have the next Siakam in Paul Reed. It's like, I would like to see him dribble a basketball first and shoot 2 successful 3-pointers in meaningful minutes in the NBA before I call him Pascal Siakam.
yeah, Rico Hines, I think, is tremendous, and I think Nick does a great job of developing. And if those two are able to turn him into Pascal Siakam, they need contracts for the rest of their lives. So that's what I'll say. That's what I'll say about that. The Levine comment, I mean, maybe he could be a good fit. You talk about maybe being a Murray. I think you have that already, and it's about you just letting that happen, and that is Tyrese Maxey. Obviously, not the size of Jamal Murray. I get it, all right, but you got to let that grow. You go get Zach LaVine, you're right back in that same situation in terms of you're putting Maxey as your third option. Like, you think James likes to be valued? Shit. I'm telling you guys, you get Zach LaVine here, people are going to hate him in 2 months. Going to hate him. If he's that good, why can't the Bulls win? I'm going to keep freaking saying that. Because they had good players. There's good players in Chicago. Let's not act like Vuk and DeMar and Levine aren't like considered good players around the league, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying they're stars or not, but they're good players.
Good enough to get to the playoffs.
Come on. And we're going to climb for Zach LaVine. I'd rather James Harden. I can't believe I would even say that. I don't want no parts of Harden either. But, like, that's how much I'm like, LaVine ain't getting us over the top. Let Maxey take that fucking role. Please, people.
Well, how are we going to know how to pay Tyrese Maxey unless we just see what he is, right? Like, if we keep burying him behind, oh, you're the third fiddle. Oh, you're the fourth fiddle because we got to get Tobias touches because, we paid him a max contract. How the hell are you going to know what to pay him? You're going to pay him off potential? Boy, that's worked. Not with Tyrese, but in other contracts. That sure as hell worked. And I'm being sarcastic. No, listen, Tom, me being formerly maybe number one fan of the Zach LaVine to Philly camp. If that were to happen tomorrow, I'm not like partying. I'm just saying, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, it gets hard out here, but like, all right, sure. Like, I'm serious. I am in the camp of like, just literally just see how good Tyrese, Tobias, and Embiid can be this year. And then we're going to have 2 max slots open next year. And let's get nuts.
Yeah. I don't need to tie myself to Zach LaVine with those slots being open. Like, I'm just
a lot too.
Yeah, like I just don't need to do that. I think there's better options the following year than Zach LaVine gives you over the next 4 years. So I don't know.
Let me look at his contract real quick.
It's long.
All right, fellas, I gotta run. I got to take my nephew to summer camp tomorrow. Hope you do it up.
Yeah, he's getting $40 million over the next 4 years annually.
Later, Ralphie.
See ya.
Yeah, no, he's getting paid for another 4 years, $40 million annually. No, I'm good.
40. Yeah, no thanks. No thanks.
That's like panic. That's like last resort.
Yeah, trade Harden, get what you can get back, and you move on from that. We've already talked like some of the biggest mistakes this organization's done. I think that I'll leave it with this. I think the biggest mistake this organization's done is it's not that they're missing of picks. It's that what you do after you missed them. It's not getting any value, like we talked about earlier, not getting any value back in return. That's the biggest miss. Like, it's not like you miss Fultz and you essentially got Maxey back in a way, but you should have been able to get more than Jonathan Simmons, right? So whatever.
And I will be fair. They got to pick that down the line turn into Tyrese Maxey. So I will be fair, right? But in the moment when you're trading Markelle Fultz, you're trying to get something for that team, right? So like eventually, sure, thanks to Mike Muscala hitting a buzzer beater in the bubble, we got Tyrese Maxey. So I will be fair. I won't leave that out to try and create a narrative. But no, I mean the biggest mistake, and I can't even put it on I can put it on the Sixers, but it was a league-wide thing. We all know it's Adam Silver. It was Bryan Colangelo. The existence of Bryan Colangelo. That was the biggest mistake.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I can't even say Ben because I just, I wasn't like overly in love with Ben, but in that draft, I mean, if you go back to when it happened, like you got it. It's Ben Simmons is going 1. Who's going 2? That was it was right. It was and Brandon Ingram's a good player, right? Like he's a damn good scorer and a good player, right? Like I don't think he's elite. He's not elite.
Well, he can't be. That's the thing. Like I love Brandon Ingram. If we end up like Brandon Ingram, Tyrese Maxey, and Embiid, I will be very happy. But also, let's not act like he was the perfect commodity either, because a guy who can't stay on the basketball court either.
Either. And hasn't really accomplished stuff anywhere he's been.
That's gotta be like on a slow week. That's gotta be like a secondary topic. Like looking at like the last 6 drafts and looking at like what draft class ended up being like the best. Because every year it's like you're like, oh, this is gonna be a great draft class.
Right.
And then you look at the Zion one, it's like, who the hell out of those top 3 picks? Who the hell was the best pick? You look at the Ben Simmons year, you obviously look at Anthony Bennett, you look at the Nerlens one. Like there's a bunch of
so many
drafts where you're just like, what the hell happened there?
Exactly. And I take a look at, everybody hyping up the 2014 draft with Wiggins, Embiid, Jabari Parker. Everybody was hyping that draft class to be like the next, what was it? The class of 80, the class of 84, the class of 83, 84 draft class. And
well,
there were some players that panned out well. I'll give them that. Some have made big names for themselves. Others, didn't really exactly live up to the hype. I mean, everybody was talking about, hey, rigging for Wiggins. Yeah, sure, he wasn't the next LeBron James, but he became a serviceable NBA player. He was not a superstar, but he has been a very serviceable NBA player.
Second best player on a championship Warriors team.
Exactly.
Stuff last year.
Well, think about this before we go, right? Think about just the fact that, if you look at the history, your best chance of nailing a guy is 1, right? And then like after that, like in more recent times, more guys have sort of gone all over the place, right? Like, you can get damn good players, outside the lottery. You can get stars at 12, at 14, at 16 sometimes. If Joker's instance in the second round. Right, that doesn't happen.
And during a damn Taco Bell commercial.
Yeah, like that doesn't normally happen. But the rest of the first round, like there's been instances of guys of hitting it. So like the Sixers, when you look back and you're like, oh man, you had all the first round, the number one, you had the 2 number 1 picks and Simmons and Fultz, and you missed them. It sucks because why you went up the 1 that year, because listen, you were trying to get the home run.
Yep.
Right. You were trying to get the can't miss. And
of course, everybody, and when it came to that pick, the number 1 overall pick, because Boston originally had that pick and they were going to use that to get, Jason Tatum, but everybody knew they were going to get Tatum, and everybody's like, but Tatum at number 1, that doesn't sound believable. Fultz is the more logical pick at 1, so yeah, why not?
Well, Tom, couldn't you argue that was a major miscalculation. I'm not saying that's like the biggest mistake of the Embiid era, but Bryan Colangelo basically convincing himself that the Celtics were going to take Fultz. When if you look back at that, you never needed to trade up to 1. Could have stayed at 3.
Yep.
No, he got played, right? He got played on Twitter with his burner accounts, and he got played. He got played in that on draft night too. So it all circles back to him, being the biggest mistake. That's Colangelo, that is.
Yeah, and of course the star hunting comments too. It's like we whipped on star hunting.
The biggest mistake, and it's on like 3 people. It was the summer of the burner account, because that's the summer where you're thinking, okay, the Sixers are either going to get LeBron, Kawhi, or Paul George. Obviously, none of it happens. The burner account thing comes out a week before free agency, or I'm sorry, a week before the draft, 2 weeks before free agency. Also, the day after the Kardashian thing happens, where Ben starts dating Kendall, and we're on the air. We're like, oh my God, the Kendall thing started the burners, because every time a Kardashian dates an NBA player, bad things happen. That leads to Brett Brown being the interim GM, completely misbalancing the market and thinking, okay, the Spurs want Zaire Smith. We're going to trade for Zaire Smith, and we're going to package a first-round pick at Zaire Smith for Kawhi Leonard. That doesn't happen. You're stuck with a project pick. And that summer, I'm pretty sure that is followed by you having – that's like the Elton Brand year.
Mm-hmm.
And that is you being stuck into not getting Jimmy Butler and having to pay Tobias Harris. It's like it was all just improv. In the 1 year where it's like, okay, this is where we take our leap. This is the free agency year where we're going to capitalize. We go backwards. And we've been cursing that offseason ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are, hoping for better days. So, all right, boys. Good stuff.
Yes, sir.
Bad stuff, but good stuff. Thank everybody for tuning in. It's been A2D Wednesday nights only on A2D Radio. Every Wednesday, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Trips, and you can go book your Eagles getaway, your Phillies getaway, or some other teams as well, some other local teams. That's not what I meant to click on. Some other local teams as well. So go book your getaway, phillysportstrips.com. Tell them A2D sent you. We thank everybody for listening. If you haven't, hit the like, subscribe, follow, turn your alerts on, and we can't thank you guys enough. For Frank Vespi, Ryan Brotto, I'm Tom Arnone. Alerts on. Hit the like. We're out of here.